let's go ahead and get started, please. I'd like to.
The conference will now be recorded.
To the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What did I say all day? Okay, thank you. Also, we've learned that Judge Etheberry died recently, and we would like to have an additional moment of silence just for a few moments. Thank you. We do have a quorum. All members are present. We need to take a look at the agenda to see if we need. Yes, sir. Mr. Krigler's not here. Okay, sorry. We still have a quorum, but Mr. Krigler's not here.
I was suddenly worried about my eyesight. Me too. Visibility was.
There's some problems with math occasionally here. All right. Any additions or changes to the agenda? Looks pretty straightforward tonight. All right. If not, can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Thank you. We need to take a few minutes to review the minutes from the February 15th workshop meeting.
I will say one thing about the minutes is that Janet Henshaw, she's our new building permit technician. She's here, and she's going to do a better job than me. So she's been with our office for 3 months, done a great job, has a background, had worked previously in building and zoning. So she will be our secretary and coming to the meeting. So
I had found a word missing, but I can't find it again. So I guess we'll see.
you only found one that I did a pretty good job.
Yeah, it was just an A or an and or something like that.
Would move to approve the minutes.
Motion is made and seconded.
Yes.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. All right. With only 3 hearings, let's go ahead and get started with case number S-03-23-01. Kenneth Lower Contracting LLC has applied for a by right subdivision of a 10.3 acre A1 agriculture zone parcel located on Meander Run Road, Route 631. The subdivision would create 2 new parcels containing 3 acres and 4.3 acres, and a residue parcel containing 3 acres. An existing single-family dwelling is located on the proposed residue parcel, and this dwelling is addressed as 2093 Meander Run Road, Locustdale, Virginia. The subject parcel has not been subdivided in the previous 10 years, and once recorded, future subdivision rights on each parcel would be exhausted. The parcel is identified on Madison County's tax maps as 51-45. And as always, we'll have information from Ligon, any information from the applicant, and then if there are public comments, we'll have those afterward. So Ligon, anything to add to that?
No, I just put in my report that there was a question about the reserve on where the house is, and Mr. Lohr told me today that it works fine. It is older. It depends on the use of it. If it's a single person or 2 people, and if it's maintained. So I've talked to the health department. There is no requirement that there be a reserve. There's 3 acres there, so if it did fail, I mean, he has plenty of area there to find another drain site. And then on top of that, I mean, you can always, if you couldn't for some, reason that I don't suspect would be the case, but you could always have a non-conventional alternative system there. So otherwise, we've got everything in order. The health department is taking a little more time on this to approve their septic fields. I think they usually go out and just check where they're at. I'm not really sure, but again, there's been one of those situations that once we get that from the health department, which Emily is working on, it should be, I suspect, any day now. I would sign off on the plats, and he can release those to him. So that's it.
Okay, any question for Ligon?
Piece of property and land use.
I didn't think it was, no.
And you say we do not have health department?
We're still waiting on that. Normally they get it. We sent it to them a while ago, but they have up to 60 days. But so I suspect usually half the time it comes the next day. But I would say any day now we should probably get that from them.
Any other question for Ligon or comments? Does the applicant wish to address the planning commission? Or does anyone have a question for the applicant? Okay. Any public comment? No public comment. All right. Any comments or discussion from the planning commission? All right. And we have a motion on this case then.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that case number S03-02301, correction, S-03-23-01 be recommended to approval to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, motion is made. Any second?
Second.
Motion is made. Yes, sir.
That motion probably needs to say with the approval and sign off of the health department.
Mr. Elliott, typically what we have said is, we just added a motion pending approval by the Virginia Department.
Okay, so should we amend the motion or just,
Yeah, I think it's appropriate to amend the motion.
okay. Would you amend your motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that case number S03-23-01 be recommended to the Board of Supervisors for approval pending the approval of the Virginia Department of Health.
Okay,
Second.
moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, so case number S-03-23-01 recommended for approval to the Board of Supervisors. Case number SU-03-23-02. Mr. Simon Graff has applied for a special use permit to operate 3 short-term rental units on a parcel which he owns. The undeveloped parcel is 10.7 acres and is zoned A1 agriculture. And in this zoning district, more than one short-term rental unit on a single parcel requires a special use permit. Each short-term rental unit would contain roughly 1,700 square feet of interior floor space with 2 bedroom and 2 bathrooms. The subject parcel is located on Etland Road, Route 643, and is identified on Madison County's tax map as 21-5A. All right, Ligon, anything additional?
Sure. Just to make sure, I think Mr. Graff pointed out last time that the floor area would actually be a little smaller than that, the interior space. That's including the decks. So they're really a little smaller, but I think it's okay to advertise larger and actually be smaller than be bigger. So, so just to clarify that, if you look at the parcel, as far as VDOT and Health Department, those things are in order. VDOT had requested that another entrance be moved down where there's a little better sight distance. There's not a lot of traffic on that portion of Etland, on Etland Road in general. Looking at peak traffic at maybe 20 trips, in that one peak hour. I did talk to Brian Gordon about the accidents. There have been in the last 3 years, I pulled the accident data, forgot to bring it, but I did look at it. It was a couple deer, nothing, there's no patterns there on Etland Road that would suggest that it's dangerous. We do have a set of conditions in your packet. I think, to me, looking at the site, it was logged. It is steep. It is not the prettiest site right now, but I think that if you look at condition here, number 7, before building permit is to get it issued, if this is approved, to have a landscape architect or arborist sort of rehabilitate the site, lack of a better word, get some more trees planted on it. I think visually, those cabins could, I think the owner would like to have them sort of hidden from the road, but we've got a lot of work to do. So that is a condition that I think is a good condition, would make the site look better. I've talked to Mr. Yabun. Yeah. And he was here last time, and I totally understand his concerns. He has a 17-acre parcel that adjoins it. And I told him, in my experience, not just here, other places with short-term rentals, we've had this conversation about, housing and, kind of putting that to a side as a short-term rental sort of encroaching on some of the long-term rentals. But put that aside, I've never had a complaint on a short-term rental. No one's ever called and said, "Hey, there's a group of college kids down here with a keg party at a." Is it possible? I guess it's possible, but at least in my time, I've never had a complaint on one. I mean, maybe I'm lucky, but I think the people who are attracted to this type of venue tend to that's what they want to do. They want to get out in nature and be quiet. And you do have, you have the winery up the road. You have Graves Mountain. So I think there's a lot of things to do in the area. And also, we've talked about this before, and I've talked to other short-term rental owners. It's going to get to a saturation point. And I think we're maybe starting to see, to a certain degree, what is the capacity? Is that something, that is a concern of the county as far as from a policy point? I don't know. I think it should be a concern of the owners for sure. But I do believe that we do have quite a few, and probably, a couple hundred at least in the county minimum. So at some point, I think there has been a little bit of softening as far as maybe some of the rates that people were getting, and it's getting more competitive. So I think eventually the number we'll get a number that will probably stay steady in the future. I don't know what that is. So, working with the neighbor, I know we've gotten a few calls. I think Mr. Yabon has been probably the most vocal as far as, and obviously lives beside it. But I do believe these conditions, if approved, will be enough to make sure that it does stay a nice site and looks nice. And I really don't think it will be something that will negatively affect surrounding neighbor or properties based on my experience with short-term rentals. So that's all I have.
Okay, I see you have a list of conditions that are following the SUP. Is there anything you want to tell us about those?
I got a question for him.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and start. with that.
So you did kind of talk about item number 7, legal. And I'm just kind of curious. I mean, I've driven by this place many times since it's been cleared. What is exactly you're wanting him to do as far as a landscaping architect? I mean, there's still plenty of trees on the property. I mean, a lot of those has washed down and got gathered up along with other trees.
Yeah, I mean,
It's kept from washing down into the road, but
I don't think we really have to put this as a condition
I
for
was just
the
wondering
owner
why
to do
we're
it.
doing that.
I just think I just think it would look nicer if it was planted and got some more vegetation going. It's steep, so there's only a fairly small part of the parcel that really can be built on, concealing it from the road, which I think is probably something you want to do. It's going to take a few years for it to grow, but so that was sort of my thought that, from driving by, that it was a totally, from what I understand, it was a totally wooded lot and large trees. So just sort of, I just say rehabilitating, but just sort of getting the vegetation back on it. And I think the visual appeal would be better from the road. I mean, some do it anyway, but I thought it was a good condition to add. And he didn't have Mr. Graff didn't have any issue with it, but.
Any other question? Yes, Pete?
Is there gonna be, how much land total is gonna be disturbed?
Definitely will be below an acre, but I think with the drop, right? Yeah, I mean, it'll be close, but I think we won't get to the acre.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Condition number 6. I think a word might be missing. It says overnight guest vehicles parked on the site / parcel shall not,
Uh,
Yes, sir.
should the word exceed be in there? I mean, if that's going to be a condition, I think it needs to be added prior to anyone voting.
Yeah.
I read that several times and it didn't look right to me, and I kept thinking, "What is wrong here?" And it was exceed. Yep, thank you.
yes, okay.
Yes, I'd asked before about the land use, which this parcel will be pulled out of land use. Been in land use or not?
It's not currently a land use.
Okay,
It would be pulled out.
it would have been pulled out, right, that's what neighbors like to know, or people like to know, come get our money back, so. That's a normal thing, though.
Yeah.
Our commissioner takes care of.
Any other question? I do have I don't really quite understand this second driveway entrance. Mr. Bedsole has written you a note. He said that he recommended a second entrance for because the first one didn't have enough stopping to sight distance for a low volume commercial, which is what this would obviously be. So then he says, we'll add a second entrance. So why would we is there a reason to leave one entrance and add a second entrance 100 feet away? If the second entrance, is it? It's not shown that way. I'm kind of.
Do you remember
puzzled.
what it was? I think he can speak to it, but I believe I think he just wants that one entrance, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yes.
So really he said for
Would you identify yourself also, for the record?
Good to see you
Again, jeez.
It's working.
Good to see you again. Simon Graff from Charlottesville, Virginia. What he explained was for 3 to 5 dwellings, you need 2 entrances. That's what I was told. And that's what he outlined in the email as well. He called it a low commercial entrance. You required 2 entrances for 3 to 5 homes. Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'll double check with them just before we get the
it
land
seems a
disturbance,
little
just to
odd,
make
but-
sure. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, if a single commercial, low volume commercial entrance is good for 3 to 5,
I don't want
would you
2,
require
yeah.
a second entrance 100 feet away like that?
Yeah, we'll
Just
double check
just a
that.
question, yeah. Well, any other question for the applicant while we're
Yeah, I've got one that may actually pertain to both the applicant and you, Logan. So the intention is to do a 2-bedroom unit here and then the 2 studies. It doesn't really clearly state that anywhere, and it just looks like you got a couple bedrooms hanging out there. To me, I mean, would you be opposed, and I don't know what the commission thinks about it, but opposed to that being one of the conditions, that they would be limited to 2-bedroom units?
Not at all. That's the intent. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
So we can add that in saying, I guess it would specify 2-bedroom.
Yeah, that's all the
two-bedroom
purpose
units.
for anyway. So it's whatever.
Yeah, and I know that that'll regulate that some, but that application wasn't in here either for the drain field.
I'll add that. Each
Stuff,
one's a
so.
2-bedroom unit.
I mean, I think that's appropriate. Thank you, Mr. Graff.
Yeah, you could simply add that on to the end of this second recommended condition, since that's dealing with the units, number of units.
Not if the applicant has agreed to it and it's actually a limitation rather than an expansion. So I think we're okay. But it would be appropriate in terms of whomever makes the motion for this, that they include that as an additional condition.
Okay, any other question either for Ligon or for the applicant? All right, any additional discussion from the planning commission? Okay, can we get a motion including the minor change? Oh, sorry. Any public comment on this? Yes, sir, thank you. And if you would identify yourself and
My name is Jeffrey Yablon. I own the property right next to the subject property. I've owned it for over 29 years. It's 17 acres. It's a single-family dwelling. It's right next to the property that Mr. Graff bought 3 months ago. His property, as you know, has 3 short-term rental units, but the key word is dropped out. It's unhosted short-term rental units. There's no owner on the site. There's no manager on the site. There's nothing on the site. That's very, very unusual. Most jurisdictions would not allow this. You clearly have the power, but they wouldn't. This isn't the typical NIMBY project, which you are very familiar with, much more than I, where it's not in my backyard, where you have a situation where you have something that everybody agrees is good, like a communications tower. You have a lot of experience with that too. But some adjacent owners or other people who would be disproportionately affected complain about it, but it would be good for the overall community. This is not that situation. It's not even remotely that situation. The additional tax revenues you're going to get from this will be negligible. The people who are willing to move 4 to a bedroom in 700 square feet are not going to spend money in Madison County. They're just not. You could say, well, we need tourism, and we do. Like I said, I've been here more than 29 years. I know the area, but these people are not going to spend money. The project may turn a profit, but it'll go to Mr. Graff, who's a very nice, very likable guy. He lives in Charlottesville. He's got nothing to do with Madison County. I've spoken with him. I like him. But he says things that are a little misleading. He told me that his project is similar to the short-term rental units on Rose River Farm. There are 3 there, and there are 3 that he wants to put up. That's the only thing they have in common. The properties at Rose River are supervised on a 24/7 basis by on-site management. It's part of a larger commercial activity. It's located on 20 flat acres rather than 10 steep acres, and it's not adjacent to or even near residential property. Yes, this is the closest analogy that Mr. Graff could come up with. There's no analogy. It's a completely different situation. As you know, many jurisdictions in Virginia and across the United States regulate short-term rentals. Presumably, the rules of these jurisdictions are based on real-world experience, not theory, not conjecture, real-world experience. Some prohibit unhosted short-term rentals. There has to be an owner or an agent on site. Some prohibit rental agreements for less than 30 days. Very few would allow what you're being asked to approve here. Very few. You should check it out yourself. I respectfully submit to you that tells you something. Other jurisdictions with experience have rules that would prevent this. And they didn't come up with these rules out of thin air. Personally, my property has a very good and really excellent deep well, but I run out of water from time to time. And that's why I take real short showers and keep gallons and gallons of water in jugs around. You put 12 people right next to me, and that's what we're talking about. It's going to make my water problem worse. Unhosted, and I know I keep saying this, but unhosted short-term tenants have no reason to care at all about what the neighbors might think or be bothered by. You can forbid events, and I appreciate that you've thought about it enough to prohibit events. But events have a way of breaking out with 22-year-old people who are sharing 4 to a room properties. The ideal tenant for this would be 12 fraternity boys. That's what the ideal tenant, because they come together. If you don't want 12 fraternity boys next to you, please don't put them next to me. Please. I realize you may want to be extremely lenient in giving out special use permits. That's your prerogative. But there's no special reason to grant this special use permit. There's virtually no benefit to Madison. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment on this? Yes, sir.
Kenny Lohr. I don't know if you want to put this as a condition or anything, but I know most short-term rentals have like a noise meter in the house where like if it gets too loud, it would notify somebody who they would call and tell people to quiet down so to make sure it doesn't get too loud or something like that. And you can always put that as a condition too. I think most short-term rental people have that anyway. But if that's something that would help the neighbors, if it is loud or something there, the owner would automatically get notified, or the manager, whoever's running it, would be notified, and he could contact them and tell them they need to quiet down or something like that to make sure it doesn't disturb the neighbors.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? All right, any discussion? I do have just a question. Do you have, I guess we'd say a management firm or something that, how do you plan on managing the facility since you are in Charlottesville?
That's right. I plan on managing them myself. I'm only a 40-minute drive away from Charlottesville. My background's in real estate. My wife's parents own a bed and breakfast in upstate New York. We have a lot of experience in this. So I'm not worried at all about my managing abilities of property.
So you're actually expecting relatively frequent access to the property to keep an eye on it, basically.
That's right. This will be my number one job. So I will be managing these 100%.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion or any other question? All right, can we have a motion on this then?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that case number SU-03-23-02 recommended to the Board of Supervisors, and also we need to put the condition in there that will only be 2 bedrooms.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded with
You need to put the word exceed in there.
you want to add that?
That's just a clerical thing.
Yeah.
We need to put that in motion.
That's
What was,
the word that you call
We
it.
need to put the word exceed in the motion.
yeah, just say shall not exceed 2 units.
Okay.
Since that's editorial, though, does that have to be part of the motion or?
So not exceed two bedrooms.
Okay, we'll include that in the motion.
And in Article 6.
The
Okay.
editing thing is just goes in.
Yep.
Where the words left out.
Exceed 6.
Shall not-
Correct.
shall not-
Exceed, yeah, it's
Shall
3
not-
units.
Exceed six.
Okay.
Number six.
Not
Shall
to
not
exceed
exceed
six
six.
parking,
Right.
six
Shall not exceed.
cars overnight.
All right, any other comment?
Maybe I forget. I thought there was also something about 2 bedrooms per unit,
Yeah,
no more than
yeah,
6
yeah.
cars.
Yes.
And those are incorporated by reference in the motion. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded then with adjustments. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So case number SU-03-23-02 has been recommended to the Board of Supervisors for approval. Case number SP-03-23-03. Roger Scott and Amanda Weekly Scott have submitted a site plan to construct a poultry house / facility on a 99.8 acre A1 zone parcel, which they own. In the A1 zoning district, a poultry facility is a by right use. Madison County Site Plan Ordinance requires site plans for developments with a land disturbance area of 40,000 square feet or more to be submitted to the Planning Commission for review and the Board of Supervisors for approval. The subject site plan shows an additional 1 poultry facility measuring 63 feet by 804 feet being constructed with a total land disturbance of 6.25 acres. The applicant has submitted a stormwater management plan to the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality, and approval is pending. The subject parcel contains 2 existing poultry houses or facilities with a postal address of 2494 Locust Grove Church Road, Route 616. The parcel is also identified on Madison County's tax map as 57-53. Ligon, anything to add there?
I don't, we're still waiting, like I said in my report, we're still waiting on that stormwater management plan, which they did submit it in January, so we should be getting it anytime now. I did attach the litter, nutrient management plan. I'm sure you all read it. That was attached to the, I'm just joking.
It's important.
That is currently, and the Scotts can tell you that that's currently being reviewed. It's not really our, we're not coming from a building and zoning necessarily our deal, I guess we could say, but just FYI, that is being amended now, and they expect to have that done any day now. So really the only thing we need to get before we could issue a building permit is that stormwater plan, and they have submitted all the engineering. So I really think that should come any day. So other than that, everything is in order. Any questions for me or?
Any question for Ligon? All right, well, I guess this is always the same question. Since we have pending documentation, does that determine whether we can act on the site plan at this point?
Well, I think we changed language that, we could approve things pending as long as we pointed out in the motion that, so, I mean, most communities, these are administrative anyway, so we're not, we're not going to sign, release a building permit until we have that stormwater plan. So, really just trying to, just required to have a hearing for the site plan, then that's fine. But really administratively, we wouldn't move on it if it's required or not until we have that. So I think everything, the applicant submitted everything months ago. So it's really just a waiting game. So it'd be nice if this was approved with that condition, then they can start, we can issue the permits and they can start working.
And Mr. Chairman, to your question, you would just phrase the motion or the recommendation that it be pending the approval from the appropriate agency, which is that DEQ that we're waiting on? That sounds familiar. But I think that's the way to handle that.
Okay. I think that's kind of the way Ligon has phrased it in his recommendation also, yeah. Any other question for Ligon? All right, is there any question for the applicants? Or do the applicants wish to address us, or if there are no questions? Okay.
I'd like to say
Yes.
that, based upon the neighbor across the street, I did drive out to the property and stood at the gate out of the main, and I didn't smell anything. Not to say that that couldn't happen at some point in time, but it appears that she never really said anything or made complaints, whatever, but I couldn't smell anything.
Yes, Faye.
I
Yeah.
rode past it and sat for a while too, and windows open and let out, and nothing. It's all hidden.
Yeah, if I understood you correctly, in your earlier discussion, you said that you only clean out the litter, 3 times a year or something like that, yeah. So even in that case, that would be only 3 days a year, or 3 times anyway. Any other question or discussion?
Well, there's another, I mean, the lady spoke about the smell, but there's another way to look at this too. I mean, I know where that lady's house is, I know where their place is, and right beside, right across from the lady's house, shorter distance than it is to those folks' house, all farmland right there, it's all agriculture. Mr. Putch could have sprayed chicken manure on his field plenty of times,
Hmm.
and she smelled that and thought it was coming from the chicken house. So that's the area you live in.
That's true, it is agriculture area, yeah. Any other question for the applicant or for Ligon? Any public comment then? No public comment. All right. Any further discussion, or can we get a motion on this?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion in case number SP-03-23-03-03 be recommended to the Board of Supervisors with the stipulation that we have approval from DEP.
Okay, any seconds?
Second.
Moved and seconded, okay. 2 seconds.
Who seconded that?
Faye seconded and Mike seconded. You can take your pick. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. So case number SP-03-23-03 recommended to the Board of Supervisors for approval with the condition that the required documentation is also present. All right, any other items from the Planning Commission or from the public? If not, can I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Who are those motions by?
Everybody talk to the.
Nathan and Faith.
Okay, all right, great.
What we need to do is
That's
start
quick.
having
Go get your
flags
nap.
so we can wave it.
All right, I'd like to call the Board of Supervisors portion of this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. We do need to adopt an agenda. Mr. Weekly and Mr. Gregg have been pretty prompt. They have information for the Section 174 letter. Can we put that as A under information and correspondence?
Yes, sir.
Anybody else have anything we need to add to the agenda this evening? Would y'all like to do?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. As always, let's start with public comment. Generic, general public comment. Anyone have any public comment? Kim, is there lots of people watching us online? No, nobody. We're consistent at least. Public hearings, case number S-03.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just a point of information, and it's public comment. The county has, I understand, hired my replacement now. It is Hannon Wright. He will begin, I believe, at the beginning of April. So to the extent people did not know that, they know now.
That is correct. And thank you very much for all your hard work and serving both bodies and the county. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You are. All right, any other public comment? All right, case number S-03-23-01. Kenneth Lohr Contracting LLC has applied for a by right subdivision of 10.3 acres A1 agriculture zoned parcel located on Meander Run Road, Route 631. The subdivision would create two new parcels containing 3 acres and 4.3 acres and a residue parcel containing 3 acres. An existing single-family dwelling is located on the proposed residue parcel, and the dwelling is addressed as 2093 Meander Run Road, Locustdale, Virginia. The subject parcel has not been subdivided in the previous 10 years, and once recorded, future subdivision rights on each parcel would be exhausted. The parcel is identified on Madison County's tax map as 51-45. Ligon, anything to add?
No, sir.
All right, questions for Ligon? To the applicant, Kenny, anything to add? All right, questions for the applicant?
There's an existing one right up there.
To the public, questions or comments, or just comments, I guess. All right, back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve case number S-03-23-01 as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Second?
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Case number SU-03-23-02. Mr. Simon Graff has applied for a special use permit to operate 3 short-term rental units on a parcel which he owns. The undeveloped parcel is 10.7 acres and is zoned A1 agriculture. And in this zoned district, more than one short-term rental unit on a single parcel requires a special use permit. Each short-term rental unit would contain roughly 1,700 square feet of interior floor space with 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. The subject parcel is located on Edlin Road, Route 643, and is identified on Madison County's tax map as 21-5A. Ligon?
The only thing I would address is just informational, talking about on-site owners. It's not uncommon that some communities have that requirement, but I think the majority, I know in Page and Luray, the ones I can think off the top of my head around here, that's not required. I know in Augusta they do require. So it's not uncommon, but I would say my experience is most don't require that as being so. Otherwise, if you're inclined to approve, I would just make a motion. I would work, just that exceeds 6 vehicles, and that each one would be a 2-bedroom unit. But otherwise, that's really all I have to add.
Questions for Ligon? All right, to the applicant, Mr. Graff, anything to add? All right. Questions for the applicant? To the public comment. Any further public comment? All right, back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, in response to Mr. Yablin's comments, noted in the case here says that in this zoning district, more than one short-term rental unit on a single parcel requires a special use permit. Okay, so the other way that Mr. Graff could have approached this is to divide this property. It's in A1, so he's got 10 acres. He could have divided it into 3 parcels, put a single unit on each parcel, and then it would have been by right. Okay, so this is fait accompli, really. That would have been by right. The other thing I'd like to point out for tonight and for future reference, 14-5-6 in our zoning ordinance It says, unless otherwise provided by conditions imposed under Article 14.4.3 prior, a special use permit shall not terminate upon the sale or transfer of the property by the applicant. What I'm trying to say is that condition number one is neither here nor there, because our ordinance already says that unless a condition is put on there that it goes with the owner, it in fact goes with the land. So that's all the comments I have about this.
Other comments on this? Questions? What would you like to do?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve case number SU-03-23-02 as recommended by the Planning Commission, which incorporated the conditions spelled out in the packet with one minor change and the addition of limiting it to 2 bedrooms.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Case number SP-03-23-03. Roger Scott and Amanda Weekly Scott have submitted a site plan to construct a poultry house facility on a 99.8 acre A1 zone parcel which they own. In the A1 zoning district, a poultry facility is a by right use. Madison County Site Plan Ordinance requires site plans for developments with a land disturbance area of 40,000 square feet or more be submitted to the Planning Commission for review and the Board of Supervisors for approval. The subject site plan shows an additional 1 poultry facility measuring 63 feet by 804 feet being constructed with a total land disturbance of 6.25 acres. The applicant has submitted a stormwater management plan to the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality and approval is pending. The subject parcel contains 2 existing poultry houses facilities with a postal address of 2494 Locust Grove Church Road, Route 616. The parcel is also identified on Madison County's tax map as 57-53. Ligon, anything to add?
No, sir.
All right. Any questions for Ligon? Mr. and Mrs. Scott, anything to add? All right. Questions for the applicants? All right. To the public. Any public comment? Any public comment? All right. Back to the board.
Mr. Chairman, I did want to make a comment about this particular application. It's straightforward. This is an arduous process to get everything in place to make this happen. It is nice to see an increase in agricultural activity in the county, and particularly by young farmers who are few and far between. And they're putting a lot of money, a lot of work, and a lot of risk, and that's to be commended. So therefore, I move that we approve case number SP-03-2303 as written.
I'll second.
I have to ask, and that is with the DEQ component contingent upon
Yes.
their approval.
Obviously, yes.
Yes, sir. All right. Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Information and correspondence. Mr. Gregg, you want to speak about this letter? We talked about
Yes,
this
sir,
last
Mr.
month.
Chairman.
Yes, sir.
You'll recall at last night's Board of Supervisors meeting, we were requested to prepare correspondence related to a fairly technical but significant part of the tax code, specifically Section 174. Apparently, I think in 2018, some changes were made as part of the tax reform that occurred, and one of the twilight provisions, for lack of a better term, ends this year. No action was taken. The upshot of what has happened relates to how one can amortize costs for business development, specifically those related to research and experimentation, or research and development is how most people know it. We have a business in Madison County that has approached the Board of Supervisors about sending a letter of support. We were provided a letter yesterday, which I modified somewhat, not terribly, but I see no reason that the board should not pass this. I sent it up the local government flagpole today. I got no comments, positive or negative. So I'm guessing this has not been quite the storm that was represented to us. Nevertheless, is within your authority to write the letter. It does support a local business, and it does provide community support. If the chair and if the board is so inclined, the letter is ready for you.
Everybody's looked at it. Everybody have questions, comments, thoughts? Think we should endorse this? I'm inclined to, not with just the what a big production it is, but more that this is a local business that's being affected by tax code. If we can help them in some way, I see that as a positive for everybody in the community. Is there any comments down here?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
What do y'all want to do?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just another comment. I agree. And one of the things, this harkens back to Section 179 of the code that relates to small business write-off. And if this, I really believe that the R&D should be able to write this off and not amortize it, because they are in a really high-risk environment. A lot of what they spend, they never get money back on. So that's, yeah, I'd support this.
What would y'all like to do?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board authorize the chairman of the Board of Supervisors to sign the letter of support going to Representative Spanberger.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, we're done with business this evening. I'm sorry, did you have comments on this? Yeah, we can do that. All right, public comment. Any further public comment? Mike Fisher, please.
I'm just seeking.
Thank you.
Introduce myself. My name is Mike Fisher. You hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Good. I'm from, Virginia. And I'm just inquiring, I've asked around, there's a full wedding venue, Edgewood on Tatum School Road. 300 people. They've been doing this for some time now. I'm just, no SUP that I know of and no site plan. That is not consistent of what we went through with quite a few of Press Array, and I can give you a couple other examples. And I'm just seeking information if we're going to do anything, or are we doing something that I don't know?
I can answer that.
Yeah, we're looking. Go ahead.
Arcadia, is that what they call it?
Yes.
I talked to the owner, and he says they're not doing the over 15 events, but I said, okay, that's fine. So we said, but you still have to get right with the building official, and Jamie's been out there, and I think they're doing a few things right now to comply with building official for event space. So Les sitting out, and he's very adamant that he's not doing more than 15 events, and that kind of is about a wedding season. If you did, I think you could probably do a season with 15 events without having SUP. So we'll take him on his word with that. But he is. Last I talked to Jamie a few weeks ago about it, is they're get the building permits and they're working on complying with everything with the building codes.
Okay, but this 15 thing is hard to count.
I agree.
Thank you.
Yep.
That is.
There is a means of checking. Typically, you have to get an ABC license. Just check and see how many ABC licenses.
That's a good point. We
There
can do
you
that.
go.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yep, I'll do that.
All right.
I hadn't thought of that. We just public inquiry.
It's a shame to see him retiring. Expertise. All right. Other public comment? All right. No closed session this evening. What would y'all like to do?
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank y'all.
Whoa.
This
55
conference
minutes.
is no longer